Good afternoon and welcome to WSPHA's webinar, Leading and Inspiring Others in Times of Change and Stress. Before we get started, I'd like to go through a couple slides that will discuss the technical issues of the webinar software. Firstly, please exit from all applications other than GoToWebinar for best audio and visual quality. And then secondly, you can connect to, next slide please. You can connect to audio via your computer or telephone. If you're connected with your computer, it's best to use a headset. If you are using your mic and headset and you have echo or other issues with the sound quality, you can switch to the telephone during the presentation just by clicking on the button in the audio section of your control panel and following the instructions. The slides and the recording will be available after the presentation. They'll probably be posted on the website by the end of the week. And then finally, during this webinar, we'll probably try something different, and we will be posing questions to you and asking you to answer them through the question box. That's it. Lindia?
Okay, well, welcome everyone. Thank you for registering for this webinar. I'm Lindia Wilson. I am a WSPHA board member, and currently I chair the Professional Development Committee. And recently we had done a survey and looked at what people were interested in hearing about on the webinars. And one of the main topics that was requested was around leadership skills. So we hope to provide a series of webinars around leadership, and this is the first of many more to come. So I'm going to introduce our speaker, Terry Taylor, who currently works for the Washington State Department of Health in the Prevention and Community Health Division. She has over 20 years as an executive and team coach, organizational development, strategic planning and performance measure, management consultant experience. And her education is a Master's of Arts in Organizational Psychology, and she is a certified professional coach from the Academy for Coach Training. So has a very strong background to be talking about this topic, and it seems to be very timely for what's happening in our state and what's been going on. So Terry?
Thank you, Lindia, and thank you, Betsy. And hi, everyone. Thanks for having me on this webinar. I've been thinking about the objectives to cover, and I think what will be very helpful is if people could walk away learning what it takes to get into and stay in their leadership role. It's easy to become distracted in our roles when things are stressful, and so I want to make sure people know what to do to get back into their role if they've fallen out. Participants will also know how to recognize and address signs of stress in their coworkers and themselves, and learn what employees are looking for at all levels of the organization, and also know what to do to manage themselves personally and in their own role. So this, as Lindia said, is going to be a very interactive webinar. And I'd like to start it out just a little test run. Would everybody please take a minute, and I notice there are 22 people already signed up. So would all 22 of you please enter into that chat box what you think the characteristics are that you admire in a leader. And make it your goal to flood the chat box and enter as many ideas as you can possibly come up with. And I'll keep blathering while you do that. So thank you. Let's, strong communicator, thank you. Can I have another one? This is not the bobblehead part where you're sitting at your computer nodding your head. This is the part where you're typing in an answer. What do you think the characteristics are of a strong leader? Leadership in the best of times is leadership in the best of times. You know, it's a luxurious question to ponder. In the best of times, organizations have the stability that allows people to dream big about their own roles and what they want to develop for themselves and their direct reports. These, however, are not necessarily the best of times. Wouldn't you say? We're faced with cuts and cuts and cuts and more cuts. Participants in a class I recently taught entitled Change, Chaos, and Communication listed the changes they had been living with in the previous year personally and in their jobs. And I want to tell you that the list was absolutely staggering to take in and psychically take in what people are dealing with, not only the stress that we were dealing with here at work, and we were dealing at that time with a reorganization, the planning of a major facilities move, a big change in funding, you know, the same kinds of changes that you're dealing with. And then these folks in this class listed the regular life events that many of us deal with, like terminal illnesses, deaths, divorces, foreclosures. Some folks were dealing with food scarcity because of the furloughs that we were experiencing. I began to wonder if we're really able to consider the totality of what people are dealing with when we watch each other act out here at work on our stress. It reminds me that we really need to be open to the belief that people are they really are job-minded. They really want to come to work and do a good job. They want to be successful. But circumstances that they're in personally and at work may just be confusing enough to keep people wondering what the heck's going on and what they're supposed to be doing or who's supposed to be doing what. So it's really up to leadership to use clear key messages and give people direction so they know what to do and what to expect. I went online to get some research about this topic, and I found Mr. Obama's answer to this question. U.S. News and World Report captured some sage advice from what they considered the best leaders in America. And Mr. Obama's advice is germane to all organizations, I would say. His approach is to depend on the talents and intelligence of experts and advisors that you work with, to listen to them and explore their ideas and their research, make decisions and stand by them, and while remaining calm and steady under pressure. And I'm telling you, with all that's been going on in the world, that's no small order from his office. And so, you know, we have a similar charge in our own. This is a time of unprecedented change in our work lives. And it's not just our own organizations. This is a worldwide situation. When people are saying they're stressed out, they're participating in a global shifting of what we have thought was true. What we came to depend on is shifting, and what we called reality is no longer the way it is no longer the way it's always been. I really appreciated this person's perspective. Ms. Edelman is a civil rights leader and the founder of the Children's Defense Fund, and has decades of experience with dealing with change. And I think her main point was that change and leading others during change, it's not about winning. There's not something necessarily to win. It's about being optimistic, and it's about being determined and getting up every single day to do what it takes to make progress. And I often wonder, you know, when I coach with clients, people ask me, is there a secret ingredient or something I'm missing as a leader that I'm supposed to know? And I would say this couple's summary really provides a good snapshot of what it takes. It takes passion. The Maggies believe it takes passion, faith in themselves and others, and a belief in their mission. That made them fearless in the face of the challenges and the risks they took and continue to take in their Operation Smile endeavors. So let's go back to our box and see what we've got. Wow, we've got a lot of input here. Thank you very much. I would say that that is absolutely a good laundry list of what it takes to be an exceptional leader during times of stress and change. Communication comes up repeatedly. Forthright, compassionate, and willing to do what is needed to get the job done. Keep on filling that chat box, but I want to ask you the next question. What happens to leaders? What happens to leaders when during change when times are stressful? What happens to leaders? What do you notice about yourself or the people you work with or the people you report to? When they're stressed out, what do you notice happens to leaders? I was thinking about this person I was coaching with. She was a number 3 manager in a large hospital system, and her name was Jan, not her real name. She was hired from Florida and relocated across the country to take this number 3 position, and she was over a group of, I think it was 145 people. They had 3 functions in the administrative area of the hospital, medical records and billing, and another one I can't remember off the top of my head. She was well qualified. She was the best in the field. She'd come out twice for an in-person interview. Her resume and the other candidates' resumes were vetted by multiple teams of people who were involved in the hiring process. And she was the most apparently successful candidate and selected for the job. So she packed up her life and all of her belongings, pulled up stakes, and trekked across the country, relocated near her new position, her new job, and over the next 3 months proceeded to absolutely fall apart. So the woman was well ensconced in her old position, felt successful and well qualified to do the work, but when she came to a new place and faced all that is involved with the change of that scale, her ability to cope with stress just crumbled underneath her feet. She was, I was called in to help her get more stable and get more steady in her position. And over the course of time and through some pretty deep conversations about what was meaningful to her, what she realized was that she was not able to grab on and make traction with any of the people or the positions, the people she was dealing with in the positions that she was in. And eventually, in about 5 months, decided that it was too much stress for her. She was not able to adapt and didn't want to go through any more of the change process. And she left her position and returned to Florida. That was a devastating move for her. It cost her a lot of money, but it cost the hospital, we estimated, about $80,000 in recruitment costs and hundreds of thousands of dollars of lost time in meetings with people who were trying to make a difference with this new position. So being able to cope with stress has some very tangible costs associated with it, tangible and measurable costs associated with it, and Jan unfortunately was not able to weather the change in the stress. Vern is another client I worked with. He was an entrepreneurial type, and he and his partner decided to put together to pool their resources and buy a financial services product. They hopped their lives, their houses, they talked with their wives and convinced them to pull retirement funds and threw everything into their vision of having their own business as financial services consultants. The other partner, I can't remember his name off the top of my head, his job was to go out and get business from the community, and he was full-fledged out there making contact and shaking hands with people and getting clients to come in and hear about their services, while Vern, on the other hand, was back at the office in charge of operations and setup, and he became so stressed out that he was focusing on the minutia, designing marketing brochures and other kinds of informational brochures, distracting himself from what really needed to be done, which was to establish his business and get out there and make business. So absolutely, false starts and depression is how I would characterize Vern's response to stress. He became a perfectionist. He became distracted and focused on the details that could have been better left to other people that he had already hired. So absolutely, those are some of the things that happen to people when they become too stressed out. Now here's a list of stressed out behaviors or signs of stress that you can notice. Take a screenshot of or print this PowerPoint slide presentation to refer to later. Control of workplace stress is really the leader's responsibility. Good leaders who recognize the symptoms of stress can control the situations and create more desirable workplaces that, really improve productivity and the bottom line, not to mention the dispositions of people. And happy people are much more capable and competent and effective in their roles. So when you're experiencing these kinds of symptoms at work, you're not being as effective as you could be. I did design this PowerPoint presentation to be as useful as I could imagine you might want to have back at your offices. So in addition to that laundry list of stress symptoms, I created this, I found this chart online from Gene Smart, G-E-N-E, smart.com. This is I thought, a very comprehensive poster that you could print or circulate with staff to help people notice for themselves whether or not they're exhibiting signs of stress or experiencing signs of stress. And also, by having these kinds of posters up around the office, it creates the opportunity to get people to talk openly about what they're experiencing and how they're feeling. So I don't know about you, but I could click off a few of these as experiences I've had getting ready for this presentation. It's my first time out, and I've been worrying, and I've been having some stressful experiences getting ready for this presentation. I also want you to see that there are some potentially ineffective attitudes you might notice. Now, this checklist, this is a three-part checklist, and it covers attitudes, behaviors, and emotions that are potentially ineffective. I want to emphasize that they're not always ineffective, but for problem solving, relating to other people, these are potentially ineffective attitudes that you might see at work related to stress or resistance or the inability to accept change. They are easy to spot when you know what to look for. And these too are checklists that you can share with people and help yourself and others gauge how they're expressing themselves. Again, I want to say it's not always ineffective to be tired or to withdraw or to be organizing. Often we want organizing behaviors, but sometimes these behaviors are ineffective when we're at work trying to solve problems and make progress. No one knows really whether people are justified in their hurt or guilt or their responses. And fear and grief are deeply personal. I'm not saying people don't deserve their feelings. These ineffective emotional responses at work, they're just not how to help people relate or solve problems or dream bigger or maximize opportunities or work to their greatest potential. And it's important to recognize that many people aren't aware of their impact on others. People may not know what to do or how to provide feedback about the impact others are having on them. And as leaders, we need to provide the opportunities and create opportunities and conversations where people can talk openly about what's going on, what they're observing. Many people, in the absence of someone taking the lead and creating the opportunity, many people just throw their hands in the air, a sign of apathy or frustration or maybe even a lack of responsibility, and say someone else has a personal problem and they need to leave it at home. But the impacts of not taking action are costly. And I want to talk for a little bit about the costs of ignoring the signs of stress. I want to read some statistics for you. I pulled this information together from the National Institutes of Health, the American Psychological Association, and the National Institute, I forget the third one off the top of my head, but basically you can see workplace stress costs the nation estimated more than $300 billion each year. Here's the third one. It's the American Institute of Stress. Those costs come out of industry and missed work and stress reduction efforts and in the cost of health care. Workers who report they are stressed incur health care costs, in fact, at 46% higher or $600 more per person. And 2 out of 5 workers experience distress due to too much pressure or mental fatigue at work. 1 out of 5 workers are at risk for stress-related health problems, and 1 in 10 is so tired at the end of the workday that they don't enjoy their non-work time. And that's what it's, that's why supposedly we're working, is to create a better life. 62% of people say they don't think their employer tries to minimize unnecessary stress, and that's a wake-up call to all leaders. That people are looking to leaders to make a difference, to reduce the stress and remove the barriers to getting the work done. Half of all employees don't think their employer has an interest in their well-being, and 1 in 5 state their regular work interferes with their responsibilities at home and keeps them from spending time with their families. 1/3 of workers report high levels of stress, and this statistic was really startling to me. My sister's a therapist, and I called her up to talk about it with her. 25% of people who responded in an American Psychological Association survey of 10,000 people report they have no support personally. And what that means, after I read the research, what that means is 25% of people in that survey cohort don't have family or a spouse or a church or a social organization where they can get personal support. So I look around my agency, and we're quite a large agency, some 1,300 employees. That's 400, potentially 400 people I work with have no support. So when I'm using my filter to observe people's behavior, I wonder how able I am, or you are, to keep in mind that the reason people, or the way people are acting out, has a lot to do with how able they are to discharge that stress in healthy ways. So as a leader, how do you gain your vantage point? These factors combine to create a burden for employers in healthcare costs, disability, absenteeism, job turnover, and poor productivity. And of course, as I said earlier in that class on change, chaos, and communication, the personal costs of stress and anxiety together, it's immeasurable. It's just astounding. So it can become quite toxic, in fact. And the way to gain perspective is to think about, what's the purpose of stress? Some stress can be a good thing. It keeps you focused. It makes you competent and competitive. It prompts action. But it can also be toxic, as we just talked about, especially in this brutal budget environment that we're in. The long hours and layoffs and fear of what may be around the corner take a real toll on people. But here are a few things that you can do. Keep the challenges you face in perspective. Maintain an intention to be gracious, and recognize that other people feel stressed too. That's a mindfulness activity and has a spiritual component, a psychic health component, but also a reality-based component. Keep the challenges you face in perspective. Some people have a tendency to catastrophize what's going on and make things bigger than they really are. My mom used to say, make mountains out of molehills. But I don't want to say that we can automatically dismiss people, because I don't want to devalue what's going on for them either. So another thing you can do is open up, foster input, find avenues for getting the honest information you need, and let people push back when they disagree, because it will relieve their stress. So open up the communication and foster it for other people. Say no to your own unending lists. I'll bet many of you are happy about that. Say yes to priorities and yes to empowering others. So that sentence did say yes to delegating, but I want to be compassionate about the people who are downline from you. Yes to empowering others, and yes to getting the work done. But no to unending to-do lists. Focus on and eliminate or lessen one unproductive thing. Now that's a really good exercise, and I'd like you to make a little note to yourself. Think about your work week and ask yourself, what is the one activity that you do that is so unproductive? And I'd love to see some ideas in the chat box to kind of spur other people's thinking. What's something that you do that's unproductive? I know the first manager I asked that question, she said email. But on second thought, she realized, you know, email is pretty important. But how she spends her time and what she does with that email, that was the thing that she could change. The one unproductive thing she could do was how she handled email. And I'd love to see some of your ideas in the chat box if you would. Yeah, filing them, that's a good idea. Coding them in some way into folders. After you make that one change to eliminate or lessen one unproductive thing, assimilate that change and next week eliminate another. So I think it would be very helpful for all the participants on the webinar if you did fill up that chat box with ideas of ways you could assimilate one less thing. You could start with your purse or your wallet to get organized personally and professionally. Streamline your briefcase, streamline your laptop case. Look at your desk, 5S it if you're doing lean. Get the junk out of your life so that your life works better. I like to look at my car and clean it up and get the glove box cleaned out. Get everything as in its place, because everything does have a place. You can be far more effective, and that's one of the lean tenets we're learning. Bravely, then after you get that done, bravely tackle your calendar and pare down your slate of meetings. And I mean that really. I work with an organization that has been involved in so many cross-organizational initiatives that people are running frantically from one meeting to the next, and they're really not getting their work done. They have to stay late to get the real work done. So I think paring down your meetings is a really good outcome of this webinar if it's one of the things you can focus on to eliminate or lessen that one unproductive thing. Too much stress is exactly that. Be aware. Get support. Too much stress is too. It's too much to do. It's too much pressure. It's too much change. It's also too high of blood pressure, too high of anxiety level. And too much stress for too long results in not enough. Not enough energy, not enough facial expression, not enough ability to respond. And if you see that in yourself and your coworkers, take action now, because that's the sign of burnout. It takes years to recover from burnout. Stress, you can intervene and make adjustments, make tactical or strategic adjustments right away to make a difference. But burnout takes years, so please do intervene if you see that in the people that you work with. Stress is also induced by bottling up too much inside. So as leaders, oftentimes you're in peerless positions in your organization. So secure a confidential relationship outside the organization where you can vent and brainstorm, even collapse, test out new ideas in a safe environment. Also, open up for yourself. It's true, being transparent makes you vulnerable, but it also makes you authentic, and people are more likely to follow you as a result. The more your colleagues know what's going on, whether it's good or bad, the better they'll feel. I like the stay fit advice. If you want to sustain your success as a leader over the long term, exercise is crucial. Now, that APA study I mentioned found that people who exercise regularly are known to be rated significantly higher on leadership effectiveness by their bosses, peers, and direct reports than people who exercise only sporadically or not at all. Now, if that isn't a motivator to get out there on your elliptical or out on the pavement, bicycling or running, I don't know what it is. Exercise can be a potent weapon against stress. It helps keep your emotions in check, it relaxes you, and it boosts your energy, not to mention all of those great weight loss benefits. So one thing is certain, whatever strategies you are using right now to deal with stress in the next 5 minutes are the same strategies you're going to use in an hour from now, unless you make a difference. So what I'm trying to say is we always get what we've always got if we always do what we've always done. So this is a time in this webinar with these great ideas flashing on the screen for you to choose one or two and make a difference. Now I know someone's out there going, oh my God, my to-do list is long enough, I can't add one more thing to it. So really make a priority choice and make yourself first. settle in for a moment, I'd like you to think about this last piece of advice, which is to look inward in order to look out. So take a minute and settle in and ask yourself a question. I'm going to give you some time to come up with an answer. What is your primary focus? As a leader, what is your primary focus? Ponder that for just a second. Submit your responses about what you think your primary focus is, but I want to tell you a little story first. There's a legend out there that says Ernest Hemingway was asked to write a full story in 6 words. And it didn't take him very long, but he's also very talented. He came up with this 6-word story. For sale, baby shoes, never worn. Now those 6 words tell the story. And it's an extraordinarily poignant story that's full of information in those 6 words. When I read that little legend, I thought, what a very effective way to help someone who's stressed out really focus on what's important. So what I'd like you to do is to take a minute, take several minutes if you need to do this 6-word exercise. Submit as many 6-word suggestions as you can think of to describe your primary focus. And here's an example. Objective communicated, motivation supplied, results delivered. And here's the link to that NPR story where the person has characterized or he's classified these 6-word stories into leadership stories, management stories. There are all kinds of faith-based uses of that 6-word story module. It's a really fun exercise, something you can help your direct reports do too. So I'd love to see an entry here on the chat box, somebody's idea about their 6-word story. Any takers giving it a shot? Often during times of stress, leaders simply lose sight of what's important, and that laser-like focus disappears. They become distracted. Usually distinguished by his ability to think big, Vern, the man I talked about earlier, he started thinking small. He micromanaged, he got caught up in details better left to others, and he became consumed with the trivial and unimportant. And to make matters worse, he leaned way forward towards perfectionism. Very unhelpful. Perfectionism is a cruel taskmaster. A more subtle leadership derailer is the obsession with doing rather than becoming. The good work of leadership is usually a result of who the leader is, what the leader does, and then flows naturally from their inner vision and character. It is possible for a leader to become too action-oriented and in the process lose touch with the more important development of self. What 6-word examples have you come up with? I can see high stress, lost interest, went fishing. That's a good one. You'll notice on the screen that I've provided 6 other examples from the website, that NPR website. I hope you'll take some time to think about it. Clarifying your primary focus as a leader, as a family member, as a daughter or a sister or a mother or a father, a church member, in any of your roles, opening a meeting, asking your team what they think everyone's primary focus is, or what the purpose of the meeting is a great clarifying question and can help you save time in the long run. Listen more, ask questions, act thoughtfully. Oh, I like that. Keep going on that. I'm going to change the slide, but keep submitting your ideas. I like this. So here's something that you can definitely do. In addition to improving your focus by asking yourself in as few words as possible, what are you here to do, you can align your communication. A lack of focus and its resulting disorientation typically lead to poor communication. Here's some do's and don'ts for you to think about. But I want to talk about that graphic of the image and the truth. Followers can't possibly understand a leader's intent when the leader's actions don't match the leader's words. When the leader isn't sure what is and communicates in an ambiguous way, people don't know how to make sense of it. If information is lacking, people will fill in the blanks. And oftentimes people don't hold people to the best, they hold people to the worst. So the opportunity to fill in the blank, usually it gets filled in with negative information or negative perspectives. So be clear. Sometimes you have the opportunity to just be authentic and say what you mean and mean what you say. Other times sometimes leaders isolate themselves, thinking that they either know best or they try to hide their feelings of impotence in the face of the challenges they're dealing with, or sometimes in the worst case they think they're clairvoyant, and people that truly are committed followers will automatically sense what their communication should be or what their goals should be. And I say that that's all voodoo leadership. I think it's better to say what you mean and mean what you say and be authentic and accessible. It's timeless advice and is so much easier and gettable when it is preceded by knowing what you mean. So by first doing the primary focus exercise and then communicating clearly, underlying clarity of purpose becomes your starting point for all your communication. It's only when you're absolutely clear about your primary focus that your communication can really pay off. And then like Popeye, you'll be able to say, I am what I am, and that's all that I am. And those two circles together on the graphic are, you know, when your image and your truth, when the image you project and the truth about yourself align, people experience trust. The degree of that overlap is the degree of integrity people experience when they are with you. So if those circles are apart, if what you are projecting to other people and what is true about you or what people can perceive as true about you are distant from each other, then that gap is the width of the lack of integrity, the lack of trust, the doubt about who you are and where people stand with you. So job one, I think, for all of us is to figure out how to get our circles to overlap. How do we get ourselves to be like Flip Wilson used to say, if you're old enough to remember Flip Wilson, what you see is what you get. Or Popeye, I am what I am, and that's all that I am. Once you have those circles together, you can, and you have a clear communication, a clear sense of focus, you can expect to be respected. Those are the building blocks of respect. Conversely, it's up to us to accept others, to invite others into the problem-solving circle, and listen 100% of the time, 101% of the time. Listening and acting on input is the key characteristic employees report makes them feel valued and respected by their bosses. Maintain understanding by asking for feedback. It's not a one-shot thing. It's like taking a shower. You have to do it every day. Help people give you feedback. Ask them those clarifying questions. Ask them, what did you hear me say? And finally, if you think this is a deficit of yours, where what you're saying and what you're, the way you're behaving, your actions and your words don't align, if you think that's a deficit of yours that you want to work on, tell your direct reports. You will be asking them to report back to you what they heard you say so that you can improve. Because guaranteed, if you sense that this is true for you, if this is resonating for you, they already know it, and they're waiting for you to get it. So here's the next slide. Be on your game. Now, it's estimated that people have upwards of 25 values circulating in their personal constellations. These values, as you know, are formed over our lifetime and are influenced by all kinds of things: culture, family, friends, church. I'm afraid video games. I think about kids today playing video games all day. Comic books, movie stars, people we admire, people we loathe. Our values get formed over time, And I like to say it's like we were born with little keyboards strapped to our chest, and everybody has access to the keyboard. Information is being inputted into our little brains from the time we're maybe even in vitro, I don't know for sure, but information gets in from a variety of sources. And through our experiences over time, we form our set of core values. Some say a core set of values is 3 values. Some say it is up to 16. Stephen Reese did a big study about American values and determined that there are 16 of them. I say whether it's 3 or 16 or 25, I say our values are the game pieces in our personal life, in our personal game of life. And when we are strategic about living from our values, we have the experience of winning, quote unquote, winning the game more of the time. Either way, core values drive our behavior. Think of them as the experiences in life we prefer to have over other experiences. For example, I'm the kind of person, I prefer accomplishment over aesthetics, or recognition over loyalty. I heard once that the Baha'i, I was at Antioch, I got my master's at Antioch and was in class with a group of people from the Baha'i religion, and they were talking about a study that their church had organized of the 7 major books of religion, and their purpose was to detect the values inherent in each. I think I remember their intent was to find the common values amongst people. You know, they're the world church. But what they found instead was 352 different value words. And we concluded in that conversation that that's what makes us unique. If researchers say we have between 316 and 25 values, and there are 352 values to choose from, that's a lot of combinations of values. But those values drive our behavior. Leading from your values is the distinguishing mark of a leader, whether you're the leader in an organization or you're leading your life, your own life and your own family. And you know, when I coach people, I say, and I mean this with all my heart, that the key to success and fulfillment, the key to happiness, is using strategies that get you the experiences you prefer to have more of the time. And frankly, it's what Dr. Phil means when he says that, when he asks that trite question, how's that working for you? What he's talking about are the strategies people choose to have the experience of their values. So if I'm the kind of person who chooses connection over accomplishment, and I'm driven, I prefer to have connection over accomplishment, and a connection is my core driving value, then chances are I'm going to be spending my time at work chatting with other people or on the phone with my family, chatting it up with them for the connection rather than achieving the work I'm here to do. So I've got to find out strategies, find strategies that work for my life rather than strategies that just randomly fulfill that need. I hope that's clear. Ask me a question in the chat box if you have a question about that. Leaders at risk who find themselves in chaos often begin to be driven by fear rather than the desire to succeed. Or past successes create pressure for leaders, and they wonder, will they be able to sustain their outstanding performance? The longer a leader is successful, the higher his or her perceived cost of failure, and those drivers, those fears, begin to create aberrant behaviors in the leader. When ineffective strategies are used, leaders can sometimes find themselves driven by fear, becoming unable to take reasonable risks. Sometimes ineffective strategies don't line up with our behavior, and we appear and feel like we're not being ourselves. But take heart and be compassionate with yourself and with others. Prompt yourself by asking what is true for you. Your own honest inquiry will help explain behavior. And I like to use the example of dignity. Dignity is when you look that up in the dictionary, it's described as a combination of respect and honor. Respect and honor are 2 values that are strong. They strongly drive people's behavior. But when you see someone at work who's angry and they're acting indignantly, and think about it from a values perspective, it makes perfect sense. Dignity, and if dignity is honor and respect, then indignation is the use of anger as a strategy to defend honor and respect. Does that make sense? I hope so. If you inquire respectfully and listen to that person, you can diffuse that anger and find out what's going on with them around respect and honor. So these are a few things you can do to help yourself manage stress and support your staff to do the same. And here's a chart that shows the cost of doing nothing. This chart came from Making the Business Case for a Healthy Workforce, produced by the Industrial Accident and Prevention Association. And it's kind of simplistic, but I really like how measurable the items are in the big oval in the center. When there's an unhealthy workplace, it results in work-related stress. Sometimes employees choose unhealthy lifestyle practices as a result of that stress. Sometimes the stress just takes its toll, and the toll is increases in turnover, litigation, absenteeism. You can read the slide. The cost is tremendous. Leaders often feel the pressure of needing to respond, and sometimes feel, as I said earlier, impotent in the face of all of those problems. So here's a way for you to keep your mojo. This work is from Marshall Goldsmith. He wrote a recent book called How to Keep Your Mojo, Get Your Mojo, and Get It Back if you've lost it. A leader's credibility is the result of two aspects: what he or she does, and that's their competency, and who he or she is, and that's their character. A discrepancy between these two aspects creates an integrity problem, just like the image in the truth circles that you saw earlier. The highest principle of leadership is integrity. When integrity ceases to be a leader's top priority, in other words, when a compromise of ethics is rationalized away as necessary for the greater good, that's when achieving results becomes more important than the means to their achievement, and the leader steps onto the slippery slope of failure. Often those leaders see their followers as pawns. These leaders lose empathy. They cease to be people perceivers and become people pleasers, using popularity to ease the guilt of lapsed integrity. It is imperative to your leadership that you constantly subject your life and work to the highest scrutiny. In addition to watching out for your employees, keep an eye on yourself. Are there areas of conflict between what you believe and how you behave? Has compromise crept into your operational toolkit? One way to find out is to ask the people you depend on if they ever feel used or taken for granted. Now that is a tough question to ask, but I think that is a great leadership step. Do you ever feel taken for granted? How are you feeling? I hope you're thinking about taking care of yourself. Assuredly, if you're not taking care of yourself, you can just count on it. No one else will. Unless you're blessed to be surrounded by more than normal people who are more sensitive than normal, people won't pick up on the signs of your fatigue and stress. People won't see it. We expect you to be superhuman and running on unlimited energy. I used to tell nurses I worked with that the patient population and doctors expect nurses to unconditionally care no matter what happens to them, no matter if they had to pull a double shift, no matter if the last patient was abusive or the last doctor was abusive. The next patient expects the nurse to care unconditionally for what's going on for them. That's not tenable. While leadership is invigorating, it is also tiring. Stressed out leaders who fail to take care of yourselves physically, psychologically, emotionally, and spiritually are headed for disaster. Think of having a gauge for each of these 4 areas of your life and check them often. When a gauge reaches the empty point, make time for refreshment and replenishment. And as someone who's worked with a lot of people dealing with burnout and my own burnout, I would say don't ever let that gauge get down below the quarter tank level. Clear your schedule. Figure out your primary focus. Do that 6-word exercise again and take care of yourself. It's absolutely vital to your leadership that you continue to grow and develop. A task that can be accomplished, ironically, only when your tanks are full. So, what fills your tank? Richard Leder is the man who wrote this book, The Power of Purpose. And what he did to gather his research is he asked people, he asked people who were actively dying 65 deep questions about life. And in those interviews, he consistently asked people, if you could live your life over again, what would you do differently? And these are the 3 themes that were repeated by these people over and over. They look like sound pieces of advice for leading in a way that is more meaningful and more humanly essential. So I wonder if you know what your purpose is in life or as a leader. Ray Blunt is a man, a former consultant with the Council for Excellence in Government and the Federal Executive Institute. He talks about the 3 toughest choices every leader eventually faces. And interestingly, when I researched this, it seems like his 3 choices relate to the wisdom Leder found in his interviews. I'm going to start calling Leder, which is the correct pronunciation of his name. I'm going to start calling him Leiter so I can keep these words straight in the rest of this presentation. I don't want to confuse you. So Blunt found these 3 choices that relate to the wisdom Leiter found in his interviews. And then I added a 4th choice to help maintain your primary focus. The last advice Leiter got is Blunt's first choice. Answer the primary focus above and deepen your inquiry about what you are here to do, personally and professionally. A leader's first choice is to clarify your purpose. If we can understand the connection between what we do and how the organization we are a part of serves others, we will have a clearer, long view that transcends our inbox, which unfortunately is where I think we gravitate when we're feeling overwhelmed. The second choice is to define the truth. Truth helps drive out fear by making it a safe place for true harmony. When harmony and safety exist, issues can be confronted quickly and directly, leading to faster and more decisive actions and better attention to results. It is one of the most productive uses of your time, and it's hard. I wrote a class for the governor's office called Speaking Truth to Power. And the intention of the class was to support people who were making legislative presentations, give testimony to the leaders in the House and the Senate, and stay on their game. What we found when the classes were rolled out, that people have a really hard time speaking their truth. People feel it's the ultimate challenge, and I think it explains public speaking fears. The first task of a leader is to define reality. What is true? Speak the truth to power, speak the truth to those who work for you, and be transparent about yourself. Don't leave it to others to tell you that you are revealed or vulnerable. Call for the dangerous truths that need to be spoken. Sometimes it requires what we all hate to do, and that's to give honest feedback about performance. And sometimes it means opening ourselves up to honest feedback from our folks, or admitting when you screw up. These dangerous truths require courage, and they require that we devote time to talking honestly and openly to people and encouraging the same for ourselves. Now, I don't know, have any of you read the Lenciani book, The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team? But Lenciani says, when you don't speak the truth, you pay the price. The lack of truth leads to an absence of trust, and absence of trust fosters a fear of conflict. When we're not very good at dealing with conflict, we end up lacking commitment. A lack of commitment leads to avoidance of accountability, and that leads to the inattention to results. So invite and encourage the truth, and then walk your talk so that your circles line up. So here's Blunt's third choice. Develop the people. Focus on developing your most valuable assets. If the first task is to define reality, the last is to say thank you, and in between, become a leader that is a servant and a debtor. The measure of your effectiveness is found in the lives of those that follow you. Are they growing, adapting, and being creative? The coin of the realm in today's organizations is resolutely human capital, and that's, I hate that term. But people say our employees are our greatest asset, but we don't act like it. That's why serving those who are in your organization and focusing on their development and their careers is such a good choice. It not only helps in building the real assets of an organization, it's transformative. It changes people and organizations, helping them become places of grace and truth. A leader's fourth choice is to reflect. Reflection is a positive experience to build, reinforce, and strengthen you. These checkups are not tests. You should create the opportunity to realize your accomplishments, appreciate your challenges and development, and decide the areas of your own growth and be grateful for the help and support you receive. Fears of the unknown and relentless change can compound and leave you feeling despair, the antidote for which is gratitude. So, this is a pretty lengthy presentation about leadership and change and the stress that we've been going through. And I know there are some people out there who are focusing on, perhaps worried about losing their own positions. So if the chaos is about your own job, you can start by thinking these four thoughts. Desires, what do you really want? The desires you feel lead to powerful motivations. Wanting something a lot makes you work hard. Consider your abilities. What are you good at? And what is your temperament? What kind of activities are you naturally most suited to? What special knowledge or skill or experience do you have? And what are the contacts or qualifications you possess? Whether or not you think it's you that might be terminated, get busy and take action while you are calm and you can be generative. The answer to these questions are your resources and describe what you bring to the table. Once you have that information, you can start thinking about where you would like to work. Identify who you want to work with in advance of needing to find a position so you can be in a proactive position rather than reactive. Once you have that information, the answer to those first four questions and the ideas about who you'd like to work for, you can compare your offer to their needs. And then in the aftermath, and folks, someone else is needing this room. I'm almost done with this webinar, and I'll be done in just a second. So the aftermath of dealing with stress and change can result in feeling below the line as is depicted in this chart. When people are in resistance to the change that they're facing, they sometimes think that what is isn't. This resistance cycle is a self-fulfilling cycle, building resistance and resentment and sabotage, and often springing out into guilt. Helping employees to get above the line and into acceptance of what is can help them be more creative and generate the changes that they need to make. I'll leave you with these 14 tips for self-management. I've gone a little long for the next meeting, and they get to the little bonus session at the end of my presentation. So these 14 tips for self-management will be included in the PowerPoint slides that you can download from the WSAFA website. And I hope that you'll find them helpful to you. Another resource you can use to print out and share with your employees. And finally, I'd leave you with this little zebra who thinks it might be stress that are making his stripes pop off. And this happy little quote from Sharon Gold: throw out your alarm clock. If the first thing you hear is your alarm clock ringing, you're waking up to instant stress. You shouldn't be bullied out of your bed. You should just be reminded that it's time to start your day. Thank you very much for participating in this. And I'd like to know if there are any questions to end the webinar. Put them in your chat box, and we'll see if I can answer them. Betsy.
It doesn't look like we have any questions. Well, we have a question about the slides, and the slides will be available on the website, and I can send an email out to attendees when they are posted. And I think that's it.
Thanks so much.
And if you are a non-member on the phone, please consider joining WSPHA, and all of these webinars are free to members. Mary?
Thank you, Betsy. Thank you, everyone, for waiting till the last